Hello all. I wanted to start documenting my journey selling cardboard. I've been doing it for a little over a year, and I wanted to go over my thought processes leading up to this point and everything that's happened. Starting with how I got started, right? So after a lot of research, I decided that eBay was going to be the best platform for me to start on, and I established some pretty simple rules and goals for myself. I only wanted to use my own money, and I ultimately wanted to expand my collection while turning a profit. And my first sale came on October 2nd of 2024 after, all of the planning and gathering the materials, all that good stuff. So this sale was for a set of Jesse cards from Hidden Trials, an oddball set. And this is one of the things that makes eBay attractive is this is two non-foil and one foil Jesse cards from the Hidden Trials box. And somebody purchased her. I would assume because it is Jesse. But it did prove to me the concept that you can create value with these specialty sets that you really can't do on other platforms like TCGPlayer. And after shipping and materials and everything, I ended up getting 68 cents profit. Now, technically, since I bought this box from a TCG, these cards each cost probably somewhere in the ballpark of 26 or 27 cents. So that is at a loss. You're operating at a loss right there. But it did prove to me the concept that bulk cards could operate well into the positive margins. And there's nothing sexy about it, right? But this is my most memorable sell, and it did prove the concept to me that it could be done. If you're willing to put in the work, it is something that is doable, right? So once I was off the ground and getting going, I needed to figure out a few things. The first of which was, where is it that I fit into the market and what is the best way to operate? And the way that I rationalize it in my mind is you got the tortoise and the hare. Now the hare, after he does a few lines, is going to be your scalpers, the people who are sitting out there trying to snatch up MSRP so they can do a quick flip. Now the problem with that kind of thing is, to each his own, more power to you. But the problem with that kind of thing is that it is not sustainable or repeatable. It's just not. Eventually the volatility and the market shifts will crush you. It is just a matter of time. So operating solely in that realm is bad. That is bad. It's bad for everybody. On the other end of the spectrum, you got your tortoise. Now, these are the guys that low capital, high capital, whatever. They don't mind parking capital into like sealed product, singles, graded cards, whatever. But they don't mind parking that capital over periods of time. And that is something that I also do not want to participate in necessarily, because as a low capital individual and with the time to be able to put in some work, being somewhere in between these two is where I think that most of us are going to be most comfortable, because you can turn margins at a quicker rate. The margins may not be as high as somebody who sits on sealed for 5 years, but it is something that is repeatable and sustainable for me. Doing things like bulk, getting cards graded, looking for good deals to sit on short term rather than long term. So somewhere in the middle is where I wanted to operate ultimately, right? All right. So the next thing that I needed to focus on was uh, what game is worth investing in as far as a business, right? Because I don't have a lot of capital. When I got started back in September, October of 2024, I had very little capital. I think less than $1,000 when I first got started. So I needed to, in my mind, it made sense to figure out what game I was comfortable hyper focusing on. Now, as far as my own personal love for the cardboard, it doesn't really matter to me. I enjoy card games. All of them have merit. All of them have uh, mechanics that are intriguing, interesting, engaging. All of these that I have displayed on the screen are all valuable games to me. I have not played Lorcana, but to my understanding, it's very similar to Magic the Gathering. But when I When I first started getting back into TCGs, I found Flesh and Blood, and I was a huge fan of the art. I'm a huge fan of the mechanics, the gameplay. But from a business standpoint, I could not see hyper focusing on Flesh and Blood as a way to sell cards. Like, I just couldn't see it. The bulk, the vast majority of the bulk's not very valuable. The sell through rate on a lot of cards is very low. So it didn't seem smart. It didn't seem smart. And Lorcana didn't seem smart to me either, just because of the way the company runs the game. Now, when you fast forward the clock to current day, it seems like they are starting to change the way that they do things. And the Fabled set is actually doing very well. All that good stuff. So maybe they're coming around. But when you look at it from my perspective, in 2024, Lorcana was not something I was comfortable with, and I'm still not comfortable with it. If you're just selling bulk, grabbing Lorcana bulk if you can find it cheap, there's nothing wrong with that. But one of the things that I realized pretty early on was that you need to have that specialization, and when you have low capital, you need to hyper focus on a specific thing. So Magic the Gathering was out of the question. I love Magic the Gathering. I have for many years. But unfortunately, the company is just, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. Pokemon, when in a vacuum and in hindsight, when you see what Pokemon has become since I started, it would have been very smart for me to just buy a bunch of boxes of Pokemon and put them in the closet. But that's operating with 2020 hindsight, right? At the time, I I wasn't comfortable buying booster boxes of Pokemon to open, right? I guess, so in my mind, the collector market dominates Pokemon. It's not necessarily the players. It's not the meta. Now you are going to see some of the same things that you do in games like One Piece or Magic, where extremely relevant meta cards are constantly fluctuating, and there is really decent margins to make off of bulk cards, especially when the meta is constantly fluctuating and cards are going up and down. And Pokemon, that happens too. But ultimately, Pokemon is a collector's market. Magic is going to be your players, Flesh and Blood your players. Disney is players and collectors, right? Pokemon is heavy collector. I don't think anybody can argue that fact. A game like Yu-Gi-Oh is extremely heavy player. Uh, Konami has destroyed any collectability. I don't think anybody would really argue with that. So ultimately, I just decided, okay, One Piece is going to be the best for me. At the time, they were coming off of OPO7's release, and OPO8. What wasn't People weren't very excited about it, but I did have a lot of faith in One Piece. I had seen the what Bandai had done with the game over the course of the 2 years that it had been out, and it seemed like the boxes were starting to bounce back. People were very invested in One Piece. There's a lot of players, and the interesting thing about One Piece is that it also has collectors. Like, you can grade One Piece cards; they grade very well, and the collectors will buy those cards, depending on the characters. Having some knowledge, doing some research, and yes, One Piece is a game where it has a lot of players. The company has been good to the game so far, and you also have collectors because it's a strong IP. So ultimately, that is what I decided to do. One Piece, and I decided, okay, I'm all in on One Piece. Now, deciding that, I started investing the little capital that I had into bulk, right? I just started collecting bulk, and I started doing mass listings on eBay for playsets mostly. And then that was going back to why I chose eBay as a platform, being able to do those specialty listings, full sets of Dawn, different combinations of leader cards, all that good stuff. eBay listings are valuable because they provide that. And after getting a lot of bulk and expanding my store, that's when you start to see the sales come in daily, multiple sales a day, right? And that's where I wanted to get. I wanted it to be consistent, sustainable. So building up an inventory and getting all those listings done. really started to kick things up, right? So this is what I'm talking about right here. Each of these listings that are current listings that I have on eBay, each of them are specialty listings. You got the play sets, you got the Dawn sets, you got these sequential graded cards that you can do, and the SRs. SRs are actually quite difficult to get as play sets. They really are. If you open a full case of One Piece, you're maybe 2 or 3 play sets of the SRs that are in that set. So when you go over to places like TCGPlayer, a lot of the stores are going to be selling 1 copy of an SR, 2 copies of an SR. It's being able to buy all of the cards that you need from one individual seller is actually pretty difficult on TCGPlayer, and oftentimes you are paying a markup if the individuals do have multiple cards available, right? But on eBay, I can just provide the convenience of, hey, here's the whole playset that you need for your deck. Now, knowing the game and being involved in the meta is not necessary, but it is very beneficial because there are going to be certain cards like secret rares or high cost drops that people don't usually run full sets and they only need 1 or 2. And if that's the case, you can sell them on TCGPlayer. If they're meta relevant cards, they will sell fast on TCGPlayer. So you can list them over there. Or you could just understand what kind of cards people are going to be buying from eBay and which ones you should list as singles if it makes sense, and which ones you can list as playsets if it makes sense, right? And one of the great things about this kind of stuff is it applies to collectors and players both, right? So a collector and a player could both be interested in your listing. Not so much graded listings, obviously. Players generally probably don't care much for graded cards. A lot of people don't care for graded cards. I personally enjoy graded cards. I really do. So and that's one of the reasons why I expanded into it, which we're going to look at next. But one more thing to touch on is listing titles when you're doing eBay. I it is very time consuming, right? Time is something that I do have, and I enjoy taking good photos. And usually, if you've been shopping on eBay for a while, when you see one of my listings photos, you probably know that it's my store. My The way that I do my listings is fairly unique, and I do take the time to individually photograph the sets of cards that I'm selling, right? A lot of stores don't like to do that. I understand why, especially when you have a bigger inventory. It does start to become a pain in the butt. And sitting there taking all these pictures is very time consuming. It really is. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it. So the title is the other thing. Make sure that, in my mind, this is what makes the most sense. And this is the way that I've been doing it for a long time. Anything that somebody may search for should be included. OP11, the card number, the set name, English versus Japanese. A lot of times my titles get too big to even include the English. And as far as I can tell, eBay doesn't care. Like, if you search for Nami English, they're still going to show you Japanese cards. Like, that's just the way that it works. They're going to show you Japanese cards. Doesn't matter if I include English. It doesn't matter if you include English when you search it. You're going to see both. But the name of the card, playset's not really necessary. But some people do look for playsets, to be fair, if they're players. And, the set name, card number, I even include the little ×4. You will have people ask you questions. Like, they'll send you messages. Am I getting all 4 cards? And that's going to happen no matter what. But I do include in the description and the title that you're getting 4 of them, right? So, yeah, title's important. Whatever you think somebody might use as a keyword when they're searching for something related to your listing, the title is very important. Now, once I did get to that point where, okay, I have a lot of One Piece bulk, and I had everything from OP1 all the way up to OP. Right now, I'm kind of light on 11 and 12, but 1 through 10, and including the specialty sets, I do have quite a few listings. The majority are going to be common, uncommon, and rare, but buying bulk exclusively, I did figure out, is you do hit a cap, you know. Maybe not for a game that's been out forever like Magic, but even Magic does set rotations, right? So you are going to hit a cap. If you invest hundreds of dollars into bulk like I have over the course of a year, I promise you you're going to hit a cap on whatever game it is that you're doing. So eventually you are going to have to decide, okay, do I want to start expanding my bulk purchases into other games? Which ultimately I decided no. No, I don't want to do that because it is a lot of work for one person. And you don't have to keep up with meta, like I said, but you should probably have a pretty good idea of the games that you are selling bulk for. I would stay far away from Flesh and Blood bulk, obviously. But if you're doing Lorcana, Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and One Piece, or maybe even some of the smaller games, that's a lot. That's a lot to keep up with. It really is. So once I capped myself on One Piece, I decided, okay, I need to attack this from different angles in order to continue to grow. And ultimately, in January of 2025, at the beginning of the year, my bulk sales were rolling in. I'd been doing it for a couple months. I was feeling pretty good about it. I started a subscription for eBay because my listings, I think I sit somewhere right now around 1,000 listings. So I needed a subscription because they only give you the 100 free listings, right? So I started the subscription. And I was like, okay, so how am I going to expand? And ultimately, grading, right? And all of these things play into each other. Specialty sets is what I've been doing on eBay in general. But when you buy sealed, which I have done, if I see a good deal of sealed, there's nothing wrong with buying it because you can rip it open. You rip open the sealed if you can get it at a good deal, and you turn that into bulk and possible grading, right? So grading was what I decided I wanted to go into. For me, PSA was the no-brainer at the time. This was when I think they were $14.99 each at the time when I got into it, and I paid the subscription. PSA just made sense. Beckett has its advantages. CGC, I suppose, has its advantages. But generally, I think PSA is the way to go for most games. Now, that is going to be dependent. Every community is a little different. CGC is, in my understanding, accepted in the Pokemon community pretty well. But when it comes to One Piece, you probably want to use Beckett or PSA. If you're doing Magic cards for whatever reason, PSA Beckett. If you're doing Flesh and Blood, I mean, you could probably send those anywhere. There's not many Flesh and Blood collectors, so I don't know why you would, but you could, you know. But PSA for One Piece just made the most sense. It seems like it's what's widely accepted in the community. Beckett is also fairly accepted. But for me, a Beckett 10 versus a PSA 10, it just over the long term, PSA just makes more sense. You lose the opportunity of getting a black label, but it's such a small percentage anyway. It's like, it's really not that big of a deal in my eyes. The consistency of a PSA 10 and the brand that PSA provides is more beneficial long term in my mind. So I decided to get into the grading, right? And yeah, this is my financials, right? For the year. This is 12 months. Okay. Now, in a vacuum, I'm operating in the negatives, right? But that is in a vacuum because this is me getting started. Back in September, October of 2024, I poured like all of this Amazon right here, this over $800 Amazon. This was all startup. I bought printer, thermal printer, bubble mailers, envelopes, all that jazz, all that stuff that you need to get started. So this is basically more or less a one-time fee. A lot of this right here. TCGPlayer, that's all inventory. eBay, the majority of it is inventory. Some of it is also materials. PSA, that's all inventory. This is the subscription and all of the orders that I've paid for so far. And this should go up soon because I have another order that's just about ready. It's in QA right now. Local shops, I had to guesstimate. The receipts that I had only added up to like $650, and that did not make sense to me. I must have lost some receipts, so I kicked it up to 1,000 just to play it a little bit safer. Keeping your receipts for stuff like that is very important. I could dive into my bank account to figure out what the number is exactly, but I'm guessing $1,000 is a pretty safe bet. The shipping shields, I moved away from shipping shields for the most part because the post office was kicking back some things as non-machinable. Nothing crazy. One out of every couple hundred orders, it would come back as non-machinable. So I've moved away from using them for the most part. Now, if you order one card from me, it's going to get a shipping shield because one card by itself in a penny sleeve and a team bag is not very well protected, even with the packing slip. So for a single card, 2 cards, if it's Magic or Pokemon, 3, 4 cards, I'll make sure that they're in a shipping shield. But for One Piece, I mean, you got 3, 4 One Piece cards stacked on top of each other. They got some girth, right? The same for Final Fantasy cards. These cards are going to be fine, right? And the way that I pack, I also use the packing slip as extra protection. So shipping shields aren't as necessary for a lot of things. But if you do buy 1 card or 2 cards, I'm probably still going to use the shipping shield. So the amount of shipping shields that I have going out is going to go down. So this cost over time will also go down. But spending a little over $200 on shipping shields so far for a year, that's not bad. And the business license I ended up getting, being able to do tax-free purchases is amazing. I highly recommend it. It's not that much of a hassle, depending on what state you're in, but it's not that much of a hassle. It's not very expensive to get it done. And it's not a hassle to keep up with. It really isn't. Now, I know that this is going to vary from state to state, but this was a one-time fee. I don't have to worry about it again for the foreseeable future, to my knowledge. So yeah, it's worth it. I would say it's worth it. It's going to pay for itself in the tax-free purchases, you know? The PO box, that's a recurring fee. There's nothing you can do about that. You do not need a PO box, but I would recommend a PO box if you're going to be long-term running as a business. I do recommend getting a PO box. The eBay subscription is another one. I do not need to be paying $27.99 a month, but I do. I appreciate the amount of free listings that I get. I appreciate having a storefront with categories. I see it as a reasonable expense, and the sales that I get every month more than pay for the $27.99. So, and you can see that from the eBay net, right? So, stamps.com is also another one. I do not recommend getting a stamps.com subscription unless you are selling on TCGPlayer and you are doing 200 or more sales a month. If you're doing 200 or more sales a month, if my math is right, if you're doing 200 or more sales a month, then the subscription probably makes sense for you. For me, my TCGPlayer store, it can vary from 20 orders a day to 1 order a day. Like, it really depends on my inventory. And this is something that is going to happen to everybody, especially when you're starting out small with low capital like I did. Your inventory is going to constantly be getting depleted. Not your commons and uncommons. A lot of your bulk is going to be fine. But any cards that you have, like maybe you got some starter decks at Walmart, maybe an uncommon or a rare that you have is in the meta all of a sudden, so they disappear overnight. Those high volume cards that you have in your inventory, they are going to go very fast, right? So the only way to alleviate that is to constantly have a source of inventory coming in, or to do substantial markups of those cards so they don't move too fast, right? That's the only way to do that. But you will notice that your outgoing inventory on TCGPlayer is going to fluctuate. You're going to get an influx of cards, a whole bunch of orders are going to go out, the orders are going to slow down. So you'll have to gauge if getting a subscription to stamps is something that is practical for you or beneficial for you. I like to have it because even when I do have a slow month on TCGPlayer, having a stamps.com subscription allows me to fit my TCGPlayer orders into my eBay orders workflow without too much discrepancy. So I print my postage onto my envelopes for TCGPlayer using stamps, just like I print my postage from eBay onto my envelopes. Like there's no real difference between the two, so that the workflow just stays consistent and the same. So on those days where I got 50 to 100 orders to put out, there's not a whole lot of differentiation in the orders that I'm putting out. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Not necessary. I could cancel it, buy some stamps, all that good stuff. It would probably be cheaper for me in the long run, but I do appreciate the convenience of my workflow staying consistent. And here's my postage. This is going to be not exclusively TCGPlayer postage. A lot of this is shipping to PSA, shipping cards that I got graded for my buddy to him, a lot of that stuff. But a lot of this is TCGPlayer postage, and that total is just shy of $9,500. That's somewhere in the ballpark of what I've spent in the year that I've been doing this. Now the net is interesting. Now this is net. This fees, postage, all that jazz. Well, the postage isn't included in TCGPlayer, but it's over here, so it is going to get knocked down. But one of the nice things about eBay is they keep track of all of that stuff for you, right? So I know that after fees and postage, after 1 year of selling from October of 2024 to October of 2025, this is what I netted into my account from eBay, right? And the two nets put together, I'm just shy of 9,000. So there you go. Negative $635.37. That's where I'm at. But I am extremely happy with the way that things turned out in the first year. Because if you just subtract this one-time fee that I paid to get started, you know, printers, ink, all that jazz, that puts me in the green. And then on top of that, inventory currently listed, I think close to 3,000 on eBay and probably somewhere in the ballpark of 2,000 on TCGPlayer. So existing inventory, I have accomplished my goals. My collection has expanded quite a bit. There's probably another 1,000 of unlisted items also. But a lot of this is trial and error for me. I've never run a business. I've never been financially inclined, right? So I am very happy with the way things turned out, and my stores are still kicking. I'm consistently putting out sales. It's been good. It's been really good. I've been really happy with the whole process, and I look forward to continuing to do it and trying to find ways to expand and generate a profit is actually a lot of. I find it interesting. I find it interesting. Like recently, I got a bunch of HoloLive Blooming Radiance boxes. Um, I decided to send off quite a few of those to get graded. So I ended up dumping $600 or $700 total after grading fees and everything. And we'll see how that works out. Some of the bulk cards have been moving on TCGPlayer at decent prices relatively often. So it's it was risky to jump into a new game like that, and it may or may not be something that I continue to dive into. But it's just things like that. I find the whole process interesting, and I really enjoy it. So if you have any questions, concerns, or complaints, drop them down in the comments below. More than happy to have any conversations with anybody who watched the video. I do appreciate it if you did watch the video. But more or less, this is more of me holding myself accountable. I wanted to document And I was happy to go over all these numbers because I hadn't actually sat down and gone over all these numbers yet. And it is good to see it. It is good to see. And it does seem about right to me. Like the profit that I am making, I am clearly pouring back into the business and expanding and attacking it from different avenues, like going heavy into grading this year, which so far I have been very happy with. But yeah, I do appreciate watching if you did watch, and I'll probably be doing some more videos. If you have any ideas, throw them down below and we could talk about it. Later.